Dusk by John McCary. Vampires are real. Just let me first say, with all my heart and all the strength left in my failing body, fuck Twilight and fuck Stephenie Meyer. She does not know the first thing about being a vampire. Although, I suppose I do owe her at least a token of gratitude, for her books and movies have made my own existence so much easier. Now that every 14-year-old girl in every affluent suburb of every diseased city thinks of Edward Cullen instead of Barlow or Nosferatu when they hear the word vampire, well, that makes things a little easier. So thank you. And if those girls weren't busy being leached bone dry in the exsanguination chambers, then they would thank you too, Stephenie Meyer, for lending at least a semblance of meaning to the padding void of their existence. I was never bitten by a vampire. My parents are not vampires. I was not raised in a cave, and I cannot fly, or disappear, or run, or even walk very far at all. But make no mistake, I am a vampire, and I can type on a computer just fine. I was born in an exclusive private clinic in Albany, New York, in August of 1990, right after the start of Gulf War I. I looked like a normal, healthy baby, right up until the moment I was cut loose from my mother, and for the first time filtered my own blood. It seems my lymph and limbic blood filtration systems were not up to the task, and in 45 minutes I was slipping into a coma and suffering from hemispheric nerve damage. The doctors at this clinic are second to none, and their knowledge is not confined to the Western standards of morality. They know only loyalty to my family and to the vast sums that my parents have rendered for their services. The birthing master present during my first episode was especially skilled in the medicinal arts, and recognized my discolored and desperate condition immediately for what it was. He was famous, in his own right, in his Eastern European homeland, before the collapse of the Soviet Empire, famous for his wisdom of the mystic as well as the medical. Acting quickly and with surgical precision, Dr. punched a hole in my inner thigh with his monogrammed stainless steel pen. My polluted blood jetted thickly out of that clogging arterial passage, and in one fluid motion, Dr. pulled the pen free from my squirming leg and buried it deep into the stunned neck of a young nurse in attendance. She fainted into his powerful arms, as bright red blood sprayed in a thick mist from around the pen in her neck. Calling for assistance from his partner, Dr. snapped his pen in half and stabbed the half that wasn't busy protruding from the nurse's neck into my other thigh, deep into the arterial realm. He turned and tore a length of surgical tubing free from a standing IV array, and connected the two pens, from her neck to my thigh with a length of the clear tube. Her strong, healthy pulse force-fed her blood into my system, keeping me alive as the poison that had corrupted my own veins flowed out of my other thigh and onto the floor, pooling in thick, dark puddles on that tile. I realize now what a risky move Dr. made that day. A simple infection, or mismatched blood types, or an aneuritic bubble formed in that insertion trauma would have ended my life in terrible pain, and most likely cost him his own life in return. My father is not a forgiving man, but Dr. acted with speed and confidence, and so saved my life. I often wonder if he does not have some special sense, or indeed mystical powers, although the latter I doubt, since I have seen no proof, even from myself, that such power exists. His skills, medical or otherworldly, saved my life that day I was born, and I continue to rely on his services to this very day to provide me with the fresh blood that my body continuously needs, and to rid me of the polluted, oily mess that I continue to make of it. Finding volunteers for service was not always as easy as it is today with the advantages that Twilight has granted me. But there have always been runaways searching for shelter, and over my adolescent years I certainly developed a taste for the blood of young girls. If I sound perverse, imagine yourself in a similar situation. I have no choice in my needs, but in my preferences I choose the blood of an unsoiled woman over the reeking putrescence that comes from the old homeless men we experimented with in my earlier days. Those filthy drifters were so easy to find, but their blood was nearly toxic with constant alcohol and drug abuse. Vices I cannot tolerate in a servant, not in my doctors and especially not in my blood thralls. When I was younger, I had a hesitation. Before consuming my first young girl, her innocence and pure beauty gave me pause. I felt guilt and self-loathing rise up inside me, although at the time I mistook it for fear. She was lightly sedated, but kept conscious with periodic adrenaline application to maximize production. And her eyes were wide but unfocused, searching around the room in a dazed panic. I lay in my bed, with a warm electric blanket and the comforting hum of my attending machines, and watched her weakly struggle against the restraints. Her eyes finally found me, and I was frozen, instantly. My father, an imposing man, stood beside me, and began to tell a story about a young girl and a snake. He said, "There was a young girl, just like this one, who lived alone in a warm house on the vast snow-covered plains of Wisconsin many years ago," he said. "She would go outside every day in the winter and find wood to keep her fireplace full and warm for the night. One day she went outside and found a perfect piece of hardwood, and as she lifted, she heard a little voice say, 'Help me, I'm so cold. Please bring me inside.' It was a little green snake talking, and his shiny eyes stared up at her from beneath the log. The girl had a kind heart, and picked up the snake, putting him in her pocket, and carried him home to warm him up by the fire. She built a roaring fire in her oven, and put the snake beside it to better warm him. He said, 'Thank you, but please, I am so cold. Could you hold me close to your warm sweater? Surely that would warm me up.' And the girl said, 'Of course,' and picked the little green snake up, and hugged him close against her chest. And in a little green flash the snake darted upwards, with its fangs bared, and bit her throat. She dropped the snake, stunned, and pressed her hands to the open wound in her throat, and asked, 'Why did you bite me?' And as she stumbled outside, in only a sweater, dying from poison and the winter winds, searching in vain for help before she died, the little green snake crawled back over to the fire and said, 'You knew I was a snake. Never trust a snake.' At that time I did not understand him, but now, as I prey on the innocence and naivety of countless vampire-obsessed teenage girls, I understand exactly what he meant. I am the snake. I am the monster. I am the bedridden terror of the night who preys on the daughters of the wealthy and the foolish. I am Dracula. I am Nosferatu. I am Barlow. I am Livingston the vampire. You knew I was a snake. Never trust a snake. Never trust a snake."